It's Monday, June 24th, 2019, and we are leaping into our fourth part of the Roots of Meditation course. And it's all about power, empowerment, transformation. I went back and forth about what I wanted to actually call this phase of our journey, and I settled on power. It felt like a really clear, simple word. We began with ritual, health, wisdom, and power. Feels like um, a nice, simple way to describe what I want us to talk about this week. But of course, the word power can come with some strange connotations for a lot of us, some negative connotations for some of us. So we'll talk a little bit about what I mean by that this morning. And I'll just give you a little bit of an overview of what's coming later in the week and how you can get started working with your own power. So, we've talked a lot about nature and our true nature, and that everything and every being in this whole universe has a true nature, their own kind of innate offering that kind of comes with them just via their being. And one's power is actually just one way of describing one's true nature. What I mean by power, or what often is meant by power, is something akin to yet another theme that we've had running through the whole course, which is control. And we started off talking about how in meditation, we're not trying to have control over our minds, because that implies an imperfection in the mind, and then it implies some part of us that's sort of better than or above, that's going to be dominating another aspect of ourselves. And what I'm going to suggest here, and what we're going to look at this week and really dig into on Wednesday, is when we're actually truly sitting in our true nature, when we are actually standing in our own power, the illusion of control, the desire to control reality goes away. And then there we are, meditative state, not trying to manipulate anything, not trying to force anything, not trying to grasp after and pull in resources from the world that we don't need, and to do so in a kind of attached way. And also, we're not pushing anything away and go, you have to get out of here, right? Some part of myself has to be controlled, manipulated, or tamped down. The whole enlightenment path, look at any of the spiritual traditions, look toward any of um, the energetic paths or the healing paths out there. And they are all paths of empowerment. They're all paths of us shedding what keeps us from being empowered. And they're paths of developing, fully developing, doing whatever work we need to fully develop our true nature and to develop our innate powers. Because so much of our power is given to us as potential that then we actually have to do the work to manifest fully. Look to the famous stories of the Buddha, Jesus, right? Other great saints and sages. They go on a journey of empowerment. they go on a journey. They do not, they do not end up where they started. And so we're going to look on Wednesday at the suffering that happens, the challenges that come along the path. Why is it that we have to suffer? Why is it that that's always part of the journey? You could also look to the hero's journey. This has also been something that's influenced the way that I talk about all of this, that Joseph Campbell speaks about. Why in every great epic, right? Because he goes back through all of the great myths and epic stories are cultural stories. In all of these stories, there's a kind of victory and a triumph that does eventually come, but it comes via obstacles, challenges, the obstacles and challenges that grow our hero into their empowerment. And it causes us suffering when we'll look at this. I want you to look at this for yourself. The suffering that you cause when you try to have power in where you don't have it, where it's just not your power to have. That is always going to end up looking like attempts at control. And then we also cause suffering when we do have a power, when we do have the power to do something meaningful, valuable, and we don't take that opportunity, when we don't live up to that potential. That creates suffering. And so this week, I want us to take a look at what we can have power over, what we're supposed to have power to do, and what we don't have power over. I've got a quote I'll end this with today, a quote from Nisargadatta that's about this very thing, where we can put our energies in a useful way and where we're just always going to be frustrated because we're not in charge of that, at least not in the way that we're trying to be. One of the things that we don't really have power over is the phases of the hero's journey, the phases of the transformational journey. And here are the phases as we see them in meditation. It's really important to remember that while every individual is totally different, every journey is going to be different. What Joseph Campbell found is that there is actually a pattern to this journey, right? And the pattern that I've found in terms of sort of awakening or becoming enlightened, becoming empowered ourselves, is that that there are these certain phases, and I'm just going to give them to you very simply today, and I want you to sort of see how this unfolding can happen. Most of us tend to get a little attached at different steps of the journey. And the fact of the matter is, it's the whole journey that brings us to our empowerment, to our enlightenment. It's the whole journey that brings us back to health, that brings us to a place of new wisdom. You're on a journey right now to create this meditation practice to support your whole life. And watch for where the parts of the journey that you cling to, right? Often we cling to the victorious part, right? The end of the journey. We want to get there before we're ready, actually. Notice where you cling to the journey and notice where you avoid, or you say, oh, the journey is actually not happening or it's a bad journey, right? Because when really we're just in this phase. So you could think of it like the seasons, right? If we get too attached to summer, we don't understand how winter created summer. So it's true with your journey too. Challenges that we'll talk about a lot on Wednesday, or the moments where it seems like we're maybe not making a lot of progress. Sometimes that's just the work happening underground, or the work happening in a kind of tumultuous way. But what we eventually need to come to peace with, have to come to peace with, is that the journey unfolds in its own phases, seasons, aspects, and that every part is invaluable. And so I'm going to give you the journey in 4 simple parts today, and then I'll read this Nisargadatta quote, and we'll get on with the work of our week. So if we're going to transform, now, important to remember, transformation is in your true nature. That is one of your innate. It's just innate, right? We met the child self and the wise older self today in our meditation practice. You're growing. And even though the physical body tends to stop growing not too long after adolescence, fairly early actually in the human life, the spiritual progress, the energetic progress, the intellectual progress, the all of the powers that you're embracing, that continues on after, of course, our physical body stops developing. But the physical body is a good reminder, right, of how this development works. And though it stops kind of happening on the outside, this is the development that's happening on the inside for you. So when we're ready to transform, the meditation practice is essential. We can't have this fully deep transformation process happen without the meditation practice and what it gives us, which is the first step of transformation. And the first step is actually acceptance. The first step isn't a step forward or backward or side to side. It's a step inward. It's a step of arriving fully into this moment. And the meditative state, we said at the very beginning that one word we could use for the meditative state that's very simple is just acceptance. Here I am, I'm sitting on my cushion and it is what it is. I am meeting reality right now with full acceptance. And so the first stage of our transformation is to arrive fully exactly where we are. The more fully that we can arrive where we are, the easier and the more kind of powerful this next phase comes. So the next phase is revelation. And revelation, we talked about a lot last week. It's the moment when you see what is in its true nature. And it's a revelation because in the first stage, in that acceptance process, we arrived much more fully into what is. And then what is was able to communicate to us. So from the full acceptance comes the revelation. As we said last week, once we have a revelation, that's not quite enough. We do need to do something with the revelation. We need to honor the revelation, which I gave you some steps to do that with last week. And so that's the third stage. The third stage is that work of honoring the revelation. It is work. Sometimes I call this phase integration because we have to kind of integrate the revelation into our lives. We have to do the work to make it, to kind of complete what the revelation is really in a way just the kind of the spark of a beginning of. And then the final stage is our transformation. And it's important to note that though the transformation process happens in kind of cycles, right? Because then we go from our transformation, and we have to come to trust our transformation and fully embody that. And then we go right back around the circle from trust and acceptance. We go back, we have new revelations, new work of honoring to do, and new transformations. So it's important both to understand that this whole thing kind of happens in a cycle, and that sometimes it will seem like we're going back around, like, oh, I've been here before, because the hero's journey does happen in a cycle, and because it does repeat like the seasons. At the same time, and this is something that I want us to really feel today, at the same time, there are things that we do complete. There are missions that we do fully complete. There are transformations that become complete within us. And the story of an enlightened being becoming enlightened is just that. There is a certain moment where you've been in the cocoon, you've been the caterpillar, you've been in the cocoon, and then you are the butterfly. And you don't forget and become a caterpillar again. So it is within your power to fully release some of the patterns that have been hurting you. It is within your power to fully take ownership over your new skills and your new habits, your new rituals. There will come a day, if it hasn't come yet, where you wake up in the morning and you just go to your meditation space. And it's not a struggle. And you don't have to consciously do that work of honoring anymore, because the honoring becomes innate. And you haven't become something different than who you were before. Like the mighty oak tree comes from this little acorn. The blueprint for what you're becoming is already inside. All right, I'm going to read to you a little bit from the Sargadatta, and then we'll close our morning here. So, the Sargadatta says, absolute perfection is here and now, not in some future, near or far. The secret is in action, here and now. It is your behavior that blinds you to yourself. Disregard whatever you think yourself to be, and act as if you were absolutely perfect already, whatever your idea of perfection may be. All you need is courage, which you will find inside. He says, all you need, you have. Use it. Behave as best as you know. Do what you think you should. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. You can always correct them. Only intentions matter. The shape things take is not within your power. The motives of your actions are. I'm going to skip to this last section here. He says, it is in the nature of love to express itself, to affirm itself, to overcome difficulties. Once you have understood that the world is love in action, you will look at it quite differently. But first, your attitude to suffering must change. Suffering is primarily a call for attention, which itself is a movement of love. More than happiness, love wants growth, the widening and deepening of consciousness and being. Whatever prevents this becomes a cause of pain, and love does not shirk from pain. The energy that works for righteousness and orderly development must not be thwarted. When obstructed, it turns against itself and becomes destructive. Whenever love is withheld and suffering is allowed to spread, war becomes inevitable. This week, I want you to feel into the innate power that lives within you. Your innate, yes, I can absolutely post those quotes, I will. I want you to tap into, feel into your inner power and to trust that that's yours. Feel what it's like to walk around the world as health, as wisdom, as love. Right? These are powers. And when we feel ourselves walking around like that, we stop being trying to grab at power from others and from elsewhere. We become satiated and satisfied with what we've already got going on. And then we can walk around the world as that enlightened being, as the one who brings the light and brings the love everywhere we go. We're walking around in our true nature, in the meditative state, honoring everything we come across.